All right, so Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Rabbana zidna ilma. I want to welcome everyone to session 2, titled Homeschool Graduates, Real Journeys, Real Lessons. And today we're celebrating and hearing from young women who have turned their homeschool experience into clarity, direction in life, and a lot of confidence, mashallah. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in Surah Al-Ankabut that وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا لَنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سُبُلَنَا, that as for those who struggle and strive in our cause, we will surely guide them along our way. The mothers we spoke to last week strove and made efforts to keep their daughters in the path of Allah while giving them the education to walk that path guided, inshallah. And the Prophet ﷺ has taught us that consistent small deeds are the most beloved to Allah. And homeschooling is exactly that. Steady effort among whatever life throws at you that builds discipline, resilience, and faith. So today I have 3 beautiful young women who are going to share their honest stories, how they navigated academic transitions, built social confidence, handled FOMO moments, and I know they have a lot of those that they want to share, and discovered what truly helped them grow and succeed in the real world. Inshallah, this session will be empowering and full of insight, reflections, lessons, and advice straight from these young girls who have walked the path. So please join me in sharing and welcoming Ayesha, Maaria, and Hafsa. And we've changed up the setup of this talk a little bit. We're going to have Ayesha, who is going to be the host, and ask the questions to these other homeschooled girls, mashallah. All right, Ayesha, go ahead. Please give us your introductions as well.
For sure. Assalamu alaikum, everybody. My name's Ayesha. I'm 24 years old. I graduated from university 2 years ago. I majored in computer science, and I'm now working at a software company. I'll let Hafsa go ahead with her intro.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Hafsa. I am also 24, and I'm currently in my 4th year pursuing Doctor of Occupational Therapy. And yeah.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. I'm Maaria Shaikh. I'm 23, and I just completed my degree in computer science this June. So I think what I'm going to do first is all of us will talk a little bit about how it was when we started homeschooling, and then we'll go by the questions one by one. So when I started homeschooling, I was 8 years old. I had finished grade 3 from school, and then I started homeschooling. I remember that transition to be very, very, I want to say refreshing, because I remember waking up early in the morning before my dad went to work, and then we would all have breakfast together, and there was no rush. And then we would get to write in our diaries and spend time with my dad, and then see him off to work. And it was so much more relaxed, and there was so much more time to do productive things than there was back when we were in school, because back in school it was very like go, go, go. So that's how I remember the time that we started homeschooling.
Yeah, I think we we have a similar experience. So I also I was in school till grade 3, and then when I remember the one thing I think I remember from that time, that transition, is losing my friends. Because I had a lot of friends in my grade, and at that time I think we were developing friends at that time. So the first question I asked my mother was, "Wahan friends honge?" Because I didn't know कि homeschooling kaise work karegi and what it is. So and she was like, "Yes, yes, you'll find a lot of people," which we will come back to later. But yeah, that is one thing I remember, and I do remember feeling very lonely as well. So that is one thing I'd say.
Okay, so when we started homeschooling, I was 6. I had just completed grade 1. In terms of experience, since me and Aisha are sisters, that was quite similar. One thing I would like to add is that I was the kind of child that would really stress on homework, even as like a grade 1 student. So I'd come home, I didn't want to change, I didn't want to do anything, I just want to get done with work. So just not having that pressure on me, I think really did do good for me. Okay, my next question is for Hafsa. So Hafsa, what did homeschooling actually look like in your home? What was the structure like? What was your routine? How flexible did you find it?
I think like the structure and routine differs as you grow. So like during when I was like maybe in grade 4, 5, 6, it was different because it was like Kari Savare Subah mein, so you're like studying in the morning and you're waking up really early, you're having breakfast together, and like you have this allotted study time and then fun time, etc. So it was different, but of course it changed throughout the years. So the general structure I would say was starting the morning with Quran and some sort of connecting back to the Sira or something like that, some kind of like family bonding time as well. And then there was again with homeschooling, there comes a lot of family bonding time generally as well, even while you're studying. So I guess that was the basic structure throughout the day. And then during the evenings, it was more about pursuing any interest that you have, any hobby or anything like that. So yeah.
I do have one thing to add here. Since you're at home, and then I remember I was 10 years old when my mom had my youngest sister. That does have an impact on how, because I remember our life being very structured and very disciplined from when I was 8 years old to when I was 10. And then when Hadia, my youngest sister, was born, we did obviously have to change things up. And then we weren't as strict in our structure. So I do feel that that does make a difference. And that is something to consider when obviously your mom is your teacher and then your mom's having kids. Yeah. Okay, now my next question is for both of you. What was the biggest advantage of being homeschooled for you?
Okay. So personally, I would say the biggest advantage was to be able to do things at our own pace, to be able to explore our own interests. So for me, like I would say, I was, alhamdulillah, good at math. So I didn't have to stop myself just to be in that grade level. I could do higher grade levels. Or if I'm weaker in a subject, I could do other things. Or for me, when I was in grade 8, I found this newfound love for like sewing and embroidery and everything. So I did the whole year-long diploma for that, which was possible because I was homeschooled and I was able to go since it was in morning hours. So being in school, I would be never able to do that since it would overlap with school. So I feel like just being able to pursue your passions, being able to do things at your own pace, and not having external pressures to complete things on time or be in a certain circle or box. That's what really gave me the advantage.
Yeah, I completely agree because you have a lot of time to pursue your interests and hobbies. I think again we have this in similar that we have done this diploma as well. I have also done the similar diploma. So I think, and I used to tease my cousins who used to come home like at 5 p.m. and they had nothing to do. After 5 p.m. they're so tired, you don't really have much of the day left to pursue anything. And by 5 p.m. I would have finished a lot of things. So I think the biggest advantage is to be able to do a lot of stuff and also to get the exposure. It's not like okay, you're in grade 3, so you're going to get this specific type of exposure. It's like you're meeting very different kinds of people. So like this is more linked to socialization, but how when you're like it depends on the homeschooler community that you have. But we had the opportunity to go to farmhouses or going to special schools or blind schools or like learning sign language. So these were all the things that the traditional schooling cannot really do, but we got that exposure through homeschooling, of course. So yeah.
I also have something to add here. My next couple of questions are about FOMO and social life. And Hafsa mentioned something very important, which is your homeschooling community. I think one thing that we were all lucky to have is that we had a group of families that were homeschooling with us. So we would get to do activities together. We weren't exactly isolated because I do feel that if we were the only kids that we knew that were being homeschooled, it would have been a completely different struggle. For us, it was kind of normal because, so for example, we had book clubs every Wednesday. And it was normal for us because we knew we had all these friends that were also homeschooled. So I think that does play a huge role in your homeschooling experience. And even for the moms, I'm sure it's nice to have other moms that are homeschooling.
Yeah, I'd like to add one thing though.
What?
Okay, just say oh my God, I lost my train of thought. So when what were you mentioning again? Remind me.
Community.
Yeah. I think about the FOMO moment, it also differs. Like even when you have that community, I think one struggle that I faced or my family faced was the fact that my mother, like I had my younger brother was born, right? So my mother had a very you know like a big surgery, so she wasn't able to travel to homeschool events. So that was something I used to struggle with a lot, because I used to be like, "Aapne mujhse promise kiya tha wahan friends honge, and then you don't take me there." So this was something, and then finding the right age group. This is also a big struggle. So I think probably only Aisha was the one, and like one or two here or there. But even when you're younger, one or two age ka difference bhi zyada lagta hai. So it was something that I used to feel like, even though of course our parents tried our best and we did go to a lot of events and everything, but for a certain period of time, I would also feel isolated. Like we're not able to go to those, and also because it's far. This is also one big thing that you have to keep in mind, that even if you have a community, they're not really close to each other. Some people live far as well.
I mean, for the longest time, I thought you were too young to be friends with. So,
And interestingly, there was not one kid my age in the whole community except boys. And then
especially girls, yeah, there was.
and then when we grew up, we split up. So then there was no one my age in the whole group.
That is a FOMO for sure.
I mean, I'm sure it's obvious that we have a lot to speak about on the FOMO topic. How did you? My question is for both of you. So, did you ever deal with comments from your friends, family, relatives on being homeschooled? And were they good? Were they bad? How did you deal with it? I think Maaria can go first.
Okay, so not exactly comments, but we do hear कि oh, friends would say, oh, तुम तो 12 बजे सो के उठोगी ना, तुम क्या पढ़ोगी? But then, personally, I feel that it was easier to explain kids what we were doing than adults. Like, if you explain to them कि क्या हो रहा है, they actually understand कि oh, you're also studying just like us. It's just in a different setting, or you do have a routine. It's just a little different from ours. But for adults, it was usually, since when we did it back then, homeschooling wasn't very common. People would think that there was one issue because of which either financial issue or something happened at school, or it couldn't just be that you wanted to be homeschooled. So I feel like it was difficult to explain older people. And for that, since I was very young, this would happen to us in the park. So I started making this joke that we just study at a happy homeschool because that's an actual school in Karachi. So then they'd just let me go.
I agree. I think for me, my mother used to always tell us this, like, Queen Elizabeth ke bacche bhi homeschool hoye hain, ya Queen Elizabeth khud homeschooling. So I would feel like, oh my God, like the confidence I had in homeschooling was huge. So I personally did not feel insecure about it or take the comments seriously, to be very honest. I felt people being like, oh, tum to itni lucky ho ke tum homeschool ho, things like that, instead of being made fun of. But I remember there was this neighbor of ours that saw my brother in the shop in the morning, and he was like, "Tum school nahi gaye?" So he goes like, "नहीं, मैं homeschooling करता हूँ." He's like, "तुम्हारे अब्बू क्या काम करते हैं?" तो फिर तो वो जा सकते हो तुम school. तो like they associated with the financial thing. Yeah, I agree with that.
And the biggest irony for me was that my dad is a professor. So it's just like, वो तो खुद education में और वो अपने बच्चों को school नहीं डाल रहा. I do, since I think there are all our audience is moms, I do think the reason that we didn't have to deal with a lot of it is because mama was already dealing with it. So I'm sure mama had something different to say, because I know that a lot of course, family that meant well, I know that, they said stuff to my mom about how she shouldn't be doing this. But I think for us, it just, because she dealt with it, it never got to us. Every now and then, my taya would be like, "Nahi, chalo, main admission karata hu." But it was never like, I never felt like I was, oh, so sad not going to school. So it never had an impact on me. Okay, my next question is, what socialization opportunities did you get? Because I'm sure you didn't get to go to school, but then you did have other activities. So both of you can tell me about it.
Okay, so I think when I started homeschooling, when I started homeschooling in the beginning, the socialization opportunities, I would say, were less. But as I grew, I think being connected, so like I did not have a lot of homeschoolers my age, and I used to live in a different part of the city than my age group homeschoolers. So I connected with like DHA moms, for example. And even then, all of the kids over there were young. So what I did instead was I helped them out with their blog. And I used to record the stuff that the kids were doing. So I used to help out as like a volunteer. in stuff. So I think that really kind of honed my skills at a very young age. And then I was dealing with a lot of adults at a very young age. So that was that. And then also with homeschooling communities, you have all of these things. You don't feel like you're missing out on stuff because you have sports days, you have melas, you have science fairs. So I didn't really feel like I was missing out. And that, again, it doesn't really impact your socialization skills or something if you get that opportunity. So I think, yeah. And then I also remember that my mother had enrolled me in like a public speaking course as well, which really was hard, but it helped, of course. You have to do these extra things because I do agree, because school mein you are meeting a vast majority of people with different backgrounds. So you do get to know, you do get to know like social emotional skills bhi aapki zyada develop ho jati hain, which sometimes I feel like for me, I developed them later on in university. So yeah, I'll come back to that later though. Yeah.
So for me, first of all, it was homeschool groups like book clubs. Secondly, we had a park right close to us, which was always a part of our routine, even when we were going to school. And I was a person that really wanted to play sports and stuff. So I got really involved in the park with people my age. Also, I was young, so I started joined a football club. So I got friends from there. We do Arabic classes for the community, so people there. So my personally, from a young age, my friends were mostly the homeschool people and like mohalle ke friends in the neighborhood. But I really enjoyed them, and so it didn't really feel like I didn't have people to socialize.
In my experience, again, I feel like it was a lot of effort on my mom's part, because then she would drive us to all these extra activities that we could have gotten in school. So I remember we used to go horseback riding. And then we also
went karate.
Yeah, we also
back
went to
back.
karate, and then we would go back to these sessions while my sister was really young. And then, so my mom would drive us to all these places. So I do feel that it was a lot of effort on her part, but we got to do so many cool activities. We would randomly go for like mango picking and stuff like that. So there was always activities for us to do, which is why I never really felt like there was any that I was missing out on activities. If anything, I got to do cool activities that my friends who went to school didn't.
For sure.
So I did enjoy that. Okay. My next question is, what is something you now realize that you didn't miss out on? Either one of you can take it. Yeah. Do you want to come back to it?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay. Now I want to ask Hafsa a question. How did homeschooling impact your confidence or your sense of identity? And I think you touched on it just now.
Yeah. I think I used to feel that like before going to university, I did like, okay, so I did my A levels privately as well. And during my A levels, I made this decision that I have to join a university and not do a university online. So why I made this decision was because it had been like 10 years of staying at home, right? And then you feel that you do need a sense of like socialization, and the FOMO moments are there. You see your cousins hanging out with their friends and they have a group of friends and you really don't have that. So that was one thing that used to somehow like bother me. And I would feel कि oh maybe मैं homeschool दूँ तो मेरे अंदर ये skills नहीं होंगी, या मैं जब university जाऊँगी so I'm going to struggle a lot with talking to people and stuff like that, which is something that I realized later when I went into university that I had an edge. So I used to think that I am going to have trouble making friends or adjusting, which was another kind of struggle because you don't see a lot of toxic people throughout your homeschooling life. So when you see them in university, it comes as a shock. So that's another thing. But I think I would say I didn't miss out on the social emotional skills which I was worried about, because I realized for example, in my case, I became the class representative, or I was like I was leading the newsletter. So I realized later on that these were the skills like during the homeschooling process where I was engaging with mothers and stuff like that, that I think eventually helped me in university.
One thing I want to add here, which is something that me and Hafsa were talking about a couple of days ago, is because we grew up homeschooled and we grew up in such a sheltered environment, our parents would sort of quality control the people that we had access to. which is why when we went to university, it was such a shock for both of us when we met people that weren't that great or people that were toxic, people that had weird habits. It was like, oh, ye bhi log hote hain, ye kahan se aa gaye? You know, like I thought everybody in the world was amazing. But that's because your parents sort of shelter you from that. But I think it's a good thing because when you're exposed to these people, you're at an age where you're strong enough in your personality and your integrity to be able to deal with them and be around them. So I do think, I mean, I like that I didn't grow up around these people or didn't grow up being influenced by such people. Okay. Maaria, we'll go in a bit of a different direction. What subjects or projects did you love because homeschooling gave you freedom?
I think I did touch up on that with like my diploma and everything, and like being able to do different grade levels. And it was always like, if I'd ask mama about a science thing, कि mama ये क्यों होता है, क्या होता है? It was never like, okay, beta ये इसलिए होता है. Like, beta ढूंढ लो, find out why this happens, or you can do an experiment about it. So I think like to be able to explore things without getting the answer and just the direction was something that really homeschooling gave me, because school method be like, it's written in the book, this happens because of this. And since I was homeschooled, I actually like do things differently and learn things differently than being in school. So I think that really is what gave me the freedom in it.
I do have a funny story to share. Okay. Maaria was a bit manipulative in her projects as well. Because I remember one time we were really young and Maaria was just looking out the window and it was morning time, and my mom is very strict on how morning time is for work and you have to be productive. So mom was like, Maaria, hurry up, like let's get to work. Why are you just standing there looking out the window? And she's like, I'm looking at the inventions of Allah. And then mom was like, okay, do your thing. Anyways, moving on. Hafsa, do you feel that homeschooling helped you stay connected to your theme and your identity? And how so?
I think in many ways you're more like, for example, in school you're exposed to a lot of ideas, a lot of wrong concepts, and you also don't have the time to come back home and clear those concepts a lot of the times. But when you're constantly with your mother, for example, and you're like, oh unne aise kiya to ye sahi hai ya galat hai, and then you're constantly questioning, so you do end up staying connected in different ways. It's not always like just reading the Quran, but also understanding the implications of different things in different scenarios. Like, oh, isse aise baat nahi karni chahiye thi, ya how do we deal with people, or what does Islam teach us about this and that. So, like in real life scenarios, applying Islam that way, I think that is something that really helped because you have that constant access, I guess.
I agree. Okay. Maaria? My next couple of questions were about pressure and loneliness. I feel like we already touched on them. Do you guys have anything to add?
Not really. Maybe we'll see in the Q&As.
I feel like we can move on.
Yeah.
Okay. Now this question is for all of us. How did homeschooling prepare you or not prepare you for college or work? If you want time to think about it, I can start. Sure. So I was homeschooled up until my O levels, and then for my O levels, I took a lot of private tuitions, and then for grade 11 and 12, I went to Canada. I did high school from there, and then I came back. I was here. I took a gap year, and then I went to university. So I have had a mixture of experiences, which is why I didn't struggle with my transition into university because I had already been to school in Canada. I do feel like this has a lot to do with your personality as well. So we're 4 sisters. All 4 of us have very different personalities. And I feel like all 4 of us deal with going to school in a different way. For me, it wasn't a struggle because I'm a very social kid. I love to be in all sorts of activities. I always have a bunch of side quests. So if anything, it was because I went to school at 16, it was the perfect age. I had grown up at home. I knew what my rights and wrongs were. And then I went to school and I was happy to be there and it was great. One thing I did struggle with though was a little loneliness because in school, in college and in university, what happens is a lot of the times kids that have been friends with each other from school or from college, they apply to universities together, they go together. At times they're already, they're already grouped into friend groups. So that is a bit of a struggle where you do feel a little alone because my friend was Hafsa, but she was younger than me. She didn't go to university with me, or I didn't have a school full of friends ki koi bhi mil jayega, when I enter my program. So that does stand out a little bit. Again, I mean, I struggled with it for a year, but then I was fine to fit in. But I think it varies. Maybe if I had had a different kind of personality, I wouldn't have been able to fit in so well. Another difference that I noticed between me and my peers in university was,
On.
oh, I remember the question. I remember I was talking about how I think that homeschool kids are annoyingly curious. So you do feel that difference when you go out in the real world, but aside from that, I don't remember it to be a struggle. Anyways, my next question is, Hafsa, do you have anything to add on that?
I think I touched upon that when I was talking about socialization.
Yeah.
Like, I think in one way, homeschooling did prepare me for college, but there was like I was not mentally prepared for what type of people there are in the world. So yeah, that is something that I did struggle with for a year. It's not like I struggled to make friends, but it's like I think by the time you go into university, you're very staunch on your values. So, and like आपकी इतनी training हो चुकी है इतने अच्छे environment में कि you're like, okay, मैं इसके लिए stand ले सकती हूँ, etc. But the world out there is ready to attack you. So it's hard. I think in one way it does prepare you because you're very strong. But like, for example, in my case, I remember this girl who sent me like a lot of audio messages and she was like, you don't because you're homeschooled, तुम कभी स्कूल नहीं गई, तुम्हें असल में पता नहीं है कि दुनिया कैसी होती है, झूठ बोल के ही you can survive in this world. And she gave like a whole lecture on how I need to survive in this world, and I cannot do that because I've not been to school and I'm not experienced enough. So that was the first time someone actually said that to me and sat me down actually and said that to me to my face. And I remember being really pissed off. So that was the struggle. But then because I was strong in my values, then I had to like gain back like I recollected myself, talked to her about it. And then I think people also know when you stick to your values, uske baad people don't try to do that again. But yeah, I think it does prepare you in some ways. In some ways, it doesn't. There are pros and cons.
This question also talks about the workforce. I think the transition from, of course, homeschooling to college is a big one, but then college to workforce is also a huge one because now you're an adult who was homeschooled because the workplace treats you like an adult. That's an entirely different ballgame, regardless of whether you are homeschooled on or not. But I think, you know how we're talking about how sometimes you go to college, you go to university, you're faced with people that test you. The workforce tests you in a completely different way. It's even less sheltered than the college environment. So in the workforce, you need to be really strong in your integrity, in your values, in the way that you conduct yourself. It's completely different from college or university as well. Okay, my next question is, what advice would you give to a homeschooled teen who feels isolated? I think, of course, I think of everything in pros and cons. Isolation is a big one. Like I said, when you go into university, there's all these people that are already friends. Even when you're an adult. So for example, I see my husband, he has a huge group of friends, bachpan ke dost hain, school ke. I do feel that, I mean, mere bachpan ke dost hain, but they're much younger than me. They're different, I don't have a grade full of people or phir main unke saath reunion ho rahi hai. So the isolation thing does come back every now and then. If it is a con that is outweighing the pros of homeschooling, then maybe don't do it because you will have to face it forever. That's my take on it. What do you think?
Yeah. I think if someone, again, like you said, it depends on the personality. If for someone it really matters that much, then there should be some kind of outlet or some kind of opportunity that they're getting. Because without it, it's more like it's going to affect their mental health at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think that's true. Personality, personality. If someone inherently they're not outgoing, they don't want to be social, then maybe it doesn't affect them to hoga hi nahi. But for me, like I wasn't very social, but I wanted to be on sports teams and stuff. So it did bother me looking कि oh वो तो tournament खेलने जा रहे हैं मेरे दोस्त ये कर रहे हैं. So in times it does affect you. And I feel like it didn't affect me to the point that would bother me or like take over my mental health. But if it's that doing that for do, then I think we should revisit and reconsider the decision.
But then again, there is also the flip side that in school, your parents can't quality control the people that you're meeting. So, you win some, you lose some. Okay. The next question is, what would you tell a mom who is scared to homeschool her daughter? I have stuff to say about this as well. I think that as the parent who is deciding to homeschool, obviously it is a big decision that you're taking for your kids, especially when they're younger. You have to be very confident in your decision. You have to know why you're doing it. You have to be ready. Also, there is that possibility where your kid might grow up and ask you, "Aapne mere saath aisa kyun kiya?" You have to be very, very confident in your reasons to be able to do it. It obviously depends on why you're scared, but if you're shaking your decision, then maybe don't do it.
Yeah. I think I have also seen, because now we're at an age where हमारे friends के भी बच्चे हो रहे हैं and they're also considering कि oh हमें भी उनको homeschool करना है, but I also feel it's because सब करें तो you just know कि oh it's an अच्छी चीज है तो चलो कर लिया, and then उसमें ज़्यादा नुकसान हो रहा है बच्चों का. So you need to plan it out well. It's not just going to be a good thing because homeschooling is a good thing. It's not like that. You will have to prepare for all the other things as well, like the opportunities that you're providing. At the end of the day, it's not like ghar pe rakh ke you're doing a very good thing, because I have seen homeschool kids be suffering that way as well. So I feel like you need to be very clear. Again, I agree with Aisha.
And it's really not a one size fits all situation. All kids have different personalities. Different kids are made for different ways of being brought up. So if you have a really social kid who wants to be in all these activities and who, is the kind of person who you think would excel at school, school is not bad. School is not the villain. Yeah, that's what I think.
I'd like to add an interesting thing. We are four siblings. All four of us were homeschooled. And I went directly to university. My brother has also gone directly to university. But my youngest brother, he recently, I think like 2 weeks ago, we have admitted him into a school. So this is interesting, a very big change for our family. Ke subah 7 o'clock pe nashta ban raha and we're seeing him off to school. And we are very clear in our intentions. Okay, we know why we were homeschooling him and why we are not at the moment. Because at that time we were all together. Up we are in universities. That's why he also does not have that community. And when we are growing, our mothers are aging too. There's also this thing. They can't be having that same energy just wo hame leke ja rahi thi to all these events with the same child as well. And she can't let him suffer. So even if you're sending him to school, again, it comes with a lot of investigation that goes behind the best of the best job opportunity de sakte hain again. So it's not like homeschooling or schooling again is the villain. At the end of the day, you decide what is best in that specific situation.
Okay, Maaria, my next question is for you. What's one myth about homeschooling that you would like to break?
I feel like now there's a lot of information and knowledge about homeschooling. So, but for when we started, the myths that were there, okay, maybe the child is weak, they're gonna lag behind, isliye ghar pe kar rahe hain, maybe there's issues financially. So I feel like the myth that I would like to break is that homeschooling is a conscious choice. Mostly, if someone is doing it, there like for us, I would say that my mom took us to like the homeschooling events before pulling us out of school. The decision, what even as a 6-year-old, the decision was kind of mine that I want to be homeschooled. Though the myth that would be look at it as a conscious choice that your child and the parents made for the well-being or for the best interest of the family. So it's not always कि किसी issues की वजह से homeschooling शुरू करी.
Yeah,
Yeah. I feel like that does come up in the comments a lot. कि कोई हादसा हुआ होगा, stuff like that. Okay, Maya, I have another question for you. If you could redo your homeschool years, what would you change? If there is anything that you change.
I don't really think so that's much as a child. बड़े होके आई थिंक ये हुआ कि होम स्कूलिंग सिंस आपको रूम देता है थोड़ा सो हमारा ये होगा कि ओके बेटा यू हैव टू कंप्लीट दिस बुक इस महीने में रोज का नहीं होगा सो आई फील लाइक बड़े होके थोड़ा सा वो करना प्रोक्रेस्टिनेट करना और ये सब इजियर होता है तो आई फील लाइक फॉर मी एज एन ओल्डर चाइल्ड इन होम स्कूलिंग लाइक 7 8 के बाद आई वुड लाइक खुद को डिसिप्लिन ज्यादा रखना और करना चाहूंगी.
Right. Do you have anything to add?
Not really.
My next question is, what are you grateful for when you look back at your homeschool journey? I'm gonna let mine answer.
Actually, for me, I was a really stressed child at home. So at school, sorry, when I was going to school, it really gave me quite a bit of stress, even as a 6-year-old, which was mushkil. So I feel like I'd be grateful for the slow pacedness that it gave me initially. And then later on for the opportunities that it brought to me, way diploma course, writing, karate, all these things that I wouldn't have been able to probably do if I were going to school.
I do have a little thing to add here, which kind of bridges my last two questions. All of us are in our 20s now. And because this session addresses moms, I do think that as a teenager, I would have had a lot more bad things to say about the strictness of it and the structure of it. So many times, you obviously parents will be strict with you, and then so many times you have an issue with that. And then I did find that in my 20s, I grew to understand all of it, and all of it makes sense to me. And now, when I think of my younger sisters in those situations, I would do exactly what my parents did with me. So I feel like there's a lot of maturity that we're speaking right now that we wouldn't have back when we were 18. So let's say if you're a mom of a teenager, maybe you just have to write it out. And then once they're older, maybe they become a mom themselves, maybe they have younger siblings, they'll get it. Because I mean, I remember I've had fights with my mom about a lot of the things that we've discussed back when I was 16. So you do grow into it. And if things are hard right now as the mom of a teenager, making all these different difficult decisions and putting in all this effort, of course, moms aren't always right, but a lot of the times it does get easier for both the mom and the daughter. Do you guys have anything to
I
add?
completely agree with that.
Yeah, I think at one point when I was very lonely, I did blame homeschooling for
Same.
it. I was like, it's all because you took me out of that school and you promised me that there would be friends, but I don't have friends. So, and then I also lost my school friend group. So that was also kind of a shock because I was close with them. But I guess that changed again when I went to university and I saw a lot of doors opening for me because of the skill set that I bought. I think that kind of makes you grateful for the opportunities that you had. Because when you go into the real world and then you see, okay, oh, ये school जाके भी they haven't really learned a lot of stuff. It's not like there's a comparison. So then you feel, okay, maybe I should be grateful for the opportunities that I had. I guess, yeah.
Yeah. Even especially for me, because like I said, I moved in high school and then I moved back. So the friends I made over there, I lost them as well. And I would blame my mom for that for a while. But looking back now, I do think I am better off with all the decisions that my mom made for me. But I'm 25 now, actually. So it did take a while for me to get here. But we're done with our questions. We're ready to take any questions from the audience. I think I'll open the chat now.
Yeah, mashallah, thank you so much for all that insight you gave. Mashallah, you guys were so articulate, and I love the maturity aspect that you guys just showed, because all the hesitation that we have while we are homeschooling, until our kids are older, and subhanAllah, I know like a couple of years ago, some people started coming up to me and saying, we really like what you did with your kids, can we want to homeschool now? And alhamdulillah, I think that's such a, reaffirmation, to hear, because I think every single parent goes through that insecurity feeling that, am I doing the right thing? How are my kids going to turn out? And hearing you guys and seeing how you guys have matured and now understand the decisions that have been made, it's very heartwarming, and it's subhanAllah, just, it just makes me so grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He has blessed you guys with those types of parents who have homeschooled you successfully. And alhamdulillah that He has guided you to have that insight, to understand how the journey, how to have that empathy for your parents, to understand the decisions they made at that time. And though it, because like a lot of things that you said resonated, like I know I'm very, I'm very choosy about the friends that my kids have been exposed to, the families that they have been exposed to. And that FOMO moment came for me that, oh my God, when they're out in the real world, what's going to happen? You know, how are they going to handle the people? How are they going to know how to read people? And now that my kids are in university, I realized, you know, everyone's personality, like you said, you find your own group. You know, those people, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also says that, you know, people with similar characteristics and personalities will attract each other. And you do want to attract those who have the same values. And I know, like Sophia has written that I agree with Ayesha that you will feel a deficiency of friends in adulthood. But as someone now who's in my 40s, subhanAllah, even though I went to public school, I've been in university, you know, out of that group of friends that I have, I'm barely in touch with anyone now. You know, life changes, life takes you in different, you know, places. You change and mature over time. Those interests that you had maybe in your teens and your 20s, you know, when you hit your 40s, things change. But no, but what you shared was very true, that definitely those FOMO moments, that socialization, these are things that parents do need to keep into consideration, especially now. I don't know, but now there's a different, I don't know, thing as well, because a lot of socialization is now done online through gaming, especially for boys. And for girls, I know a lot of the kids that I teach who are in their teens, they're playing games like Dress to Impress. I don't know if you've heard of that. And that's what their friendships are now based on. So it's a bit mind-boggling for me that what socialization are we looking for now for our kids? A lot of times my own kids, my younger ones, my older ones, mashallah, they're more normal because they socialized in the regular way, you know, through interactions, physical interactions. But my younger two, I have to now drag them like, hey, let's go meet your friends. No, I want to play with this friend online. That friend doesn't like my game. Or I'm into soccer, he's into basketball. And I'm like, really? You know, subhanAllah. So it really changes. There are a couple of things I want to, let me see if there are any. Someone is asking that what curriculum did you guys follow during your homeschooling years? And I want you to just add to that a bit, that a lot of people have been asking me this as well, that how did your lax homeschooling, like no exams, no testing, no pressure from other kids to, you know, be above them to get that A, because maybe at home you always were getting A's. How did that help you go in your O levels? Because O level does require a lot of structured learning. It's very different from being homeschooled per se.
Does anyone want to take mine? Go ahead.
I think it totally depends. I have met a lot of homeschoolers and all of them follow different academic curriculum. So honestly, it doesn't really matter that much. As long as, for example, when I was in grade 5, I was doing grade 7 math. When I was in grade 8, I was repeating D1 again just so that I could practice because, you know, like it's not school. I could, you know, make my math concept stronger. So I feel like, and then also like a few of my cousins, like if I'm talking about my personal experience, a few of my cousins, they had shifted back from Saudi. So they had their textbooks from Saudi, which were really, really like good. So we shifted to them instead. So, you know, like taking curriculum from here and there. It's not like a fixed thing, I'd say. So yeah, and then I think even for O levels, a lot of people worry when to start for it and what to focus on, etc. In my case specifically, um, I think focusing on the language subjects, like we did not focus on science or geography or these things specifically throughout our homeschooling. We would cover all of these through experiments, like Maaria was saying, or like general reading. But language and math was something that was focused a lot. So I think if you have those skills, you can easily, you know, transition into O levels as well. So you had asked another question and linked to that. I lost it.
I think like also, can you expand on what type of study skills did you focus on in homeschooling, which helped you when you had to study for O levels or A levels, for example?
Again, like you were mentioning about exams and all, right? I think it depends on a lot of discipline. So, and if the mother plays a huge role here. Because if you're like, कि कोई बात नहीं, 10 घंटे तक आप homework ही कर रहे हैं and you're dragging it all along, so you're not going to develop that skill. If you know this is your fixed time, you're supposed to sit at this time and you're supposed to finish at this time, you develop that skill throughout. You need to learn how to manage your homework. It was not like we didn't get any homework. Because again, it depends how the mother is integrating that. Like, for example, um, you can't, like, for a competition, it's like a healthy competition, like you versus you at times. Like, so like when you're younger, you don't want to read. So my mom used to make this basket of all sorts of books, majorly like Islamic books as well, like koi sahaba ki kahani or something, and it had like 10 points, 20 points, 30 points based on how thick the book was. So at the end of the week, jitne zyada points, utne, like 200 points where there was dairy milk, and 200 250 where there was juice, and then like a gift. So that was like a competition जो आप siblings में ही हो रहा है कि तुमने कितने points कर लिए, and then you at the end of the day you're studying a lot of good material as well, and that you can discuss as well, like अच्छा तुमने सहाबा के बारे में क्या पढ़ा, etc. So it's like the kind of experiences that the mother can bring in that situation, like how you can make your homeschooling better and don't and like develop those skills throughout. Discipline, I think, being one of the most important ones, like Ayesha mentioned about, उस वक्त बहुत लगता है कि अभी घर पे भी इतनी strict हो रही हैं, and like क्योंकि it doesn't make sense. Like a lot of my friends used to be like, तुम तो late, वही हमारी वाली बात, तुम तो late उठती होगी, but when you have that discipline, when you know कि नहीं फजर पढ़नी है या ये करना है, तो and these skills go a long way in life.
So do you, yeah,
Sorry, go
go
ahead.
ahead. No, you go ahead. Yeah.
I did want to share my experience. So when I was in school until third grade, I was always, the smartest kid, position holder. After that, I also did a lot of like math Olympiads and stuff like that. Always did well. I was always a pretty good student. However, in my O levels, I did realize that I don't test well. So like I was great, I knew everything, but because that environment of being tested and with this timer, I wasn't used to it. I do think that my O level grades did suffer because of that. And then eventually I caught on. Of course, I got into my university. But I just want to highlight that was a bit of a newer experience for me, my O level exams, and I did struggle with that, especially being a smart kid who didn't get the best grades. It was a bit hard on me. So that is something that I want to mention. I mean, I guess you could practice for it, and there's ways to go about it. But it is something to watch out for.
So I have another question. Like now the kids who are being homeschooled, or even public school kids, they don't have the attention span to sit and study for long periods of time. Or I wouldn't say long periods of time, but to have that or to follow that discipline that you guys were talking about. Because they are easily distracted. They want to go gaming, or they're like, oh, I need a break. Because they now, because of the way their brain is now being wired, they don't have that attention span. They don't have that interest. What do you advise parents about that? Because now you're beyond that. You're still seeing some of your siblings being homeschooled, perhaps. Or, for example, Hafsa, you said that your brother is now going to school. So how have you prepared him for, hey, you know what? This is what you're going to see in school. Be prepared, know what to take at face value, know how to manage your time. Or do you think he's going in with a good skill set that he has been given at home, from home, to manage in school?
I think like I find it really interesting when I go home. I always go like, okay, आज क्या हुआ था school में? Because I feel like I didn't get that experience. So I like asking him how it went, and it's interesting to see how, like, he was telling me that day he actually cried the whole weekend on one incident,
Oh.
and that was that the teacher talked to me this way, and the teacher did not take my audition for the Kirat competition. And the way she had talked, and the way he was explaining कि उनने ऐसे देखा कि हाँ दे दो बस मैं सुन रही हूँ ऐसे, he was acting that out, and I was like, he's so young but he could sense that emotion, like he could actually analyze कि teacher का क्या उस वक्त वो intention होगा. I'm not saying it was right or wrong, just that it's like he's sensitive. I think that is one thing I realized कि वो घर में रह के थोड़ा he is sensitive to emotions and things like that. But I would say generally he doesn't really struggle with the attention thing, but that is because you have to control the screen time. I think screen time has destroyed all of our attention
Myself
span.
included.
Yeah, I cannot even now do calls. I used to do 1 or 2 hour calls with people. Now I run away because I can't. I just can't focus. Like I have to maybe like draw something or do something while I'm on call because I can't do that. So I think I said that brings in my degree as well. Like in occupational therapy, we learn how to adapt tasks for people who, for example, are not able to focus, etc. So there are different ways that you do that. So now I do that with myself. So that is another aspect to it. But I think you can't really rewire something that's coming from, like for example, social media is something you can't really block out from your life. So you need to channelize it. You need to fix some screen times or things like that, like gaming and all these things. They do destroy your screen. Even for ourselves at this age, there needs to be a limit somehow.
Even for us adults, yes. If does anyone have any questions that they would like to ask, you may raise your hand and unmute your mic. I don't see any hands. All right, so you guys, I'm gonna hand it over to you for, do you wanna wrap it up with a dua for us parents and for the children who are the other young ladies and girls who are listening, that what advice would you give them directly? I know you have given a lot of advice, but something from the heart that, hey, hang in there, listen to your parents, don't let the teenage hormones run wild. Don't blame
I
them.
think
And because I want you to, like, one thing that I will, like, mashallah, you said you guys, you said that a lot of people think that people homeschool because of financial reasons. But based on what you guys were saying, I think your parents probably spent a lot of money on your
No, they did
other
for sure.
activities, which was more expensive than, like, I know public school here in America is free. Right. So homeschooling has cost me a lot because, but like one of you mentioned that I didn't choose a specific American textbook for homeschooling. I personally do not agree like the American curriculum. It's very dumbed down. And I basically went with a lot of the Singapore publication books. They're really good. They're very thorough. They explain things very well. So when I used to come to Pakistan for my vacations, I would be at Urdu Bazaar, going through the textbooks and trying to find what would suit my children's learning style best. And I think that really helped them as well because if we didn't like a book, we didn't like a technique, I switched it up. I went with their personality, I went with their learning style. And like you mentioned, the personality matters because someone might be an auditory learner, someone might be a hands-on kind of kinesthetic. So you have to not use the same technique with each kid. It has to be adapted. So what advice would you give to currently homeschooled kids, and what dua would you make for them?
I think one advice that I would give them is to ask questions from their parents as well. Like building that connection with your parents is also important because if you feel clueless about what they're doing, you will internally resent them, and it's just going to make the journey even harder. Because, and again, for the parents to be clearer with their intentions. So it goes both ways. I think that really helps because, again, like for example, I did talk to my mother about this thing. I don't. I'm like used to feel deceived, because she did say that they would be friends, and there were no friends. I will never forget that. Like she was like, see, and then she told me her story. I think that motivated me. So like she got like the friends she has today, she found them in university. So she told me how like she's not connected with her school friends anymore, etc. And then I was like, okay, maybe I'll find them, and I did do eventually. So I think when you find your group of people and later on you realize कि okay, maybe this was the better time, and then you realize कि Allah Ta'ala की कोई हिकमत होती है behind these things. Even isolation teaches you so much. You feel connected with Allah Ta'ala. You get more time to be connected with your own self sometimes, which is also very important. So at that time नहीं समझ आता, but it will make sense, I guess. Yeah.
I do agree with what Hafsa is saying. I think it very much has to be a team effort, especially after you're, 13, 14. It very much has to be a team effort between you and your parents. And at times you will have to pick your battles, and I think that's okay to do as long as you do it respectfully. At times you do know better what you want for yourself, and you can justify it to your parents. I don't want to preach gay, parents are always right, just listen to them. At times you do know what is best for yourself, and it's okay to have those conversations. And it's important, especially in terms of,
This reminds
growing to resent.
my father, when I was deciding to take my admission in university, he was like, why don't you find a university beside our street? And I was like, that's not possible. Because, they've seen you so much at home that even transitioning to university is not easy. And to make them understand, okay, this is a decision that I will have to take, etc. And then things get so much easier. At that time, it's like, oh my God, कुछ भी समझ नहीं आएगा, पता नहीं क्या होगा. But
It works
and
out.
he's the one now, pushing me to do other things at the end of the day. So yeah, it's just hard for them as well at times.
So, inshallah, we'll end with this. It's time as well. I just want to say, number one, for inshallah, next week, we're going to have your parents back because a lot of parents might be feeling, hey, how can I be a better parent and parent such children, mashallah, raise them like you guys have been raised. Because that brings us to dua that, رَبَّنَا هَبْ لَنَا مِنْ أَزْوَاجِنَا وَذُرِّيَّاتِنَا قُرَّةَ أَعْيُنٍ وَاجْعَلْنَا لِلْمُتَّقِينَ إِمَامًا. Mashallah, you guys are being those imams. You guys are being those leaders. And I wish I could hire you as mentors. Do you guys offer that service that, hey, if anyone is homeschooling kids and they need us to talk to their girls about, especially when they're hitting those teenage years where they might be feeling that loneliness, where, or not finding an avenue for developing hobbies, because I think that's another thing that kids are losing. They don't have any more hobbies. They just tend to just go on their phone and get FOMO that, hey, why can't I be as pretty as that? Why can't I buy that makeup? Why can't I, have that type of house? Why can't I have those type of clothes? So maybe you guys can be those mentors who can give everyone a, reality check that, hey, you know what? Your parents are doing the best they can. And
I've done
inshallah.
that. I've done
So
that with my
everyone,
parents.
yeah. So inshallah,
I think we
jazakallah
should
khair.
launch that mentor program.
You should, because I think this is needed. I know a lot of women, the parents I talk to, they are having FOMO moments that, when I go on Instagram, I see these really clean houses and I'm homeschooling and my house is a mess. And I'm like, you've made your house a home. It's a very different thing. Your kids, and that's something maybe we can have as another discussion that with the discipline of education, how did you discipline in your house maintenance, learning the skills to cook and clean and still manage your time and still manage your studies and be well-rounded people, inshallah. So jazakallah khair to everyone who was listening in. Join us again next week to see that, what skills you need to homeschool and what you already have, inshallah, and what you can develop to raise mashallah beautiful girls like Ayesha, Hannah, and Maaria. So jazakallah khair everyone for joining us, and inshallah we'll see you again next week. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam. Take care.
You too. Assalamu alaikum.
Bye.